When a racist complaint forced a black stewardess out of her job, no one expected her to return as the airline's new CEO. How did she go from being outcast to CEO? Stick around to find out how this incredible story of revenge and redemption plays out. You've probably heard stories about injustice, but this one is different. It's about a woman who faced the worst kind of discrimination and came back stronger than anyone could imagine. What happened to her wasn't just wrong, it was a turning point, not only for her, but for an entire industry. All right, now hit the subscribe button for more interesting stories. Let's continue. Her name was Candace Williams. When she first started working as a stewardess at one of the biggest airlines in the country, she was excited. She was passionate about her job, ready to travel the world and serve passengers. She had worked hard to get there, and she was proud of it. But she was also aware of the challenges. Being one of the only black women on the team meant she often had to prove herself more than others. It didn't take long for Candace to realize something wasn't right. As much as she tried to fit in and keep her head down, she could feel the stares, the whispers behind her back, the subtle, and sometimes not so subtle, comments that made it clear she didn't belong. It all came to a head one afternoon during a routine flight. Candace had done everything by the book. She had checked in the passengers, helped with the food service, and made sure everything was running smoothly. But when it was time for her to assist a first-class passenger, things took a shocking turn. A wealthy businessman, sitting comfortably in his seat, complained about Candace's presence. He called over the flight supervisor, saying he didn't feel safe with her serving him. He didn't want a black stewardess handling his food, he said. The words stung, but Candace, trying to stay professional, did her best to keep her composure. The supervisor? He didn't hesitate for a second. He sided with the passenger, agreeing that Candace should be removed from the flight. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened, but it was the first time she had felt like her career might be over because of it. Candace was escorted off the flight. The official reason? She was unfit to serve, that particular passenger. The truth? It was a clear case of racism, but no one seemed willing to say it out loud. The news of Candace's dismissal spread like wildfire. She felt humiliated, defeated, and heartbroken. How could they do this to her after everything she had worked for? She knew she wasn't the only one facing these kinds of challenges, but this felt like the ultimate betrayal. For years, Candace struggled. She fought for justice, but the airline refused to even acknowledge what had happened. She took her case to court, but the legal battles drained her energy, her time, and her will. It seemed like the world had forgotten about her. But Candace wasn't the kind of person to back down. She found a new purpose. She started speaking out against workplace discrimination. She became an advocate for those who didn't have a voice. Slowly, Candace began to rebuild her life. She went back to school, earned her MBA, and worked with various organizations to create a better environment for people like her in the workplace. Years passed, and Candace's story became one of inspiration. People who had once overlooked her now looked up to her. She was no longer just the stewardess who had been fired for a racist complaint. She had become a symbol of resilience, of standing up for what's right, no matter how hard it seemed. But what happened next? No one saw it coming. Candace's persistence, her drive, her refusal to let the past define her. It all led to something bigger than she ever imagined. The years of struggle, sacrifice, and hard work had finally led Candace to a moment she could hardly believe herself. She had spent the past decade building an empire, not one made of money, but of influence, knowledge, and respect. She had become a voice in the corporate world, pushing for equality and inclusion where there had been none before. But what no one expected was that the very airline that had fired her would soon become the platform for her greatest comeback. It started with a call. The airline, facing intense pressure from public outcry over its history of discriminatory practices, had decided to make a change. They needed someone who could not only turn the company around, but could lead with integrity and a strong moral compass. someone who had lived through the injustices and fought against them, someone who understood the importance of representation and leadership. They reached out to Candace. At first, she thought it was a joke. This was the same company that had humiliated her years ago. But after thinking about it, Candace realized this wasn't about revenge. It was about change. She saw an opportunity to reshape the company from the inside out. It wasn't just about her getting a job. It was about her creating a legacy that could help others who were still fighting battles like the one she had faced. She took the job. Candace returned to the airline, not as a stewardess, but as the new CEO. The news sent shockwaves through the industry. It was a moment of redemption, not only for Candace, but for everyone who had ever been overlooked, mistreated, or underestimated because of their background. As CEO, Candace didn't waste any time. She set out to transform the airline's culture. She implemented policies that promoted diversity, inclusion, and equal opportunities for all employees. She introduced training programs for staff on unconscious bias and racism. She made sure that no one, regardless of their gender, race, or background, would ever face the same discrimination that had almost destroyed her career. The changes were not easy, and there were many who resisted. But Candace's leadership was unwavering. She knew that if she wanted to make a real difference, she had to be bold. Her journey from fired stewardess to CEO wasn't just about personal success. It was about making the world a better place for those who came after her, and she didn't stop there. Candace also used her platform to amplify the voices of others who had been silenced by racism and inequality. She launched initiatives to mentor young people of color who wanted to pursue careers in aviation, providing scholarships, internships, and training opportunities. She was determined to give back and ensure that no one would have to fight the same fight she did. Under Candace's leadership, the airline not only recovered, but thrived. Its reputation for being a leader in diversity and inclusion became a model for other companies to follow. Candace had turned her pain into power, using the very company that had once discarded her to make history. But perhaps the most emotional moment came when she stood before the airline staff, giving a speech at the company's annual conference. She thanked them for believing in the vision of a better, fairer workplace. She spoke about how far she had come, and how the fight for equality was never really about her. It was about making sure that no one else would ever have to experience what she did. Candace's story wasn't just one of revenge. It was about resilience. It was about the power of using your past as a stepping stone, not a weight. She had transformed the narrative, showing the world that no matter how deeply you've been hurt, no matter how many times you've been knocked down, there is always a way to rise again. She proved that the greatest strength lies not in getting even, but in becoming the change you wish to see. The airline that once fired Candace had become the one place where she could now show the world that leadership isn't about your position, it's about the values you stand for. And with those values, Candace Williams had become more than just a CEO. She had become a symbol of hope, strength, and the possibility of change. No matter how unfair life may seem, or how many doors close in your face, never let go of your vision. Your worth isn't defined by how others treat you. It's defined by how you treat yourself and how you use your experiences to fuel your future. Candace Williams proved that even in the face of the deepest injustice, the power to rewrite your story lies in your hands.